Welcome back to the channel. Now, in our last video, we were tearing this car down, getting it all ready to start going back through it again. And so at this point, I haven't gotten much further with it. Still got the motor in here, and we've got the rest of the drivetrain removed. We've got the transmission out, we got the transfer case out, and I'm trying to find a new transmission right now, or at least somebody to swap this internals over to another case. And I haven't sourced that yet. Haven't had much of a chance this last week. I was out of town a lot for work. Now, I did find a motor that I'm going to put in here, and I'm going to go pick that up tomorrow. And that one, my plan there is I'm going to put an iron block, a 5.3 liter iron block in here instead of this 5.7. And then I'm going to transfer like the intake and all that stuff over to that 5.7 or 5.3. Anyway, the biggest difference is it's an iron block and a little bit smaller displacement. So basically, that's what I've got going on now. I don't want to put another aluminum block in here just because it just seems like the iron block might be a little stronger. I don't know. That's my plan moving forward right now. I don't want to spend another $4 or $5 grand on a motor and just crack it again in the future. I would rather, if it happens again, it be $1,000 motor. After all, this was plenty of motor. We never really used it all just for crawling. So that's my plan moving forward, what we're going to put in there. And what I like to do is these sorts of things after work. These are good like after work projects, because I can pull the harmonic balancer and start taking stuff apart, just kind of taking my time with it after work. I like to do these sorts of things because it's not like welding and grinding and making a huge mess of stuff.
Pulling the motor on this chassis can always be pretty tedious. It just barely fits in there. So what I have to first do is remove the harmonic balancer. Then I have to make sure the headers and everything else are removed. Then I go around and start removing all of the wires, including all of the sensor wires, spark plug wires, and then any other associated wires with the coil packs. It takes me a while to go around and make sure that I've got all the wires loose. I also have to make sure that the entire dash is loose so that the motor can come up through there as well. The entire area is pretty small and it's pretty tight, so I'm going to have to remove everything I can off this motor to get it out of there. At this point, I've already pulled everything off the front of the motor, but every time I start pulling it up through the chassis, I find something else that's hanging up. It takes me a long time to go through everything and fully remove everything off this motor. Next, I find the motor's leaning backwards too far, so I'm going to have to lower it back down and level the motor out because the crank keeps getting stuck on the front of the chassis. I'm also going to have to pull the valve covers, because even the bosses that are coming off the top of the valve covers are getting stuck on the chassis. Like I said, it's a very tight fit, and you have to take just about everything you can off this block.
We got the motor out. It's all sitting here, ready for a teardown. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm still going to keep an eye out for a good block and just do a full like overhaul rebuild like done on that Vortec and some on that Jeep 2.5 liter, stuff like that. I just tear them down, go through them, and all these other parts are still good, like the cam, the valves, rockers, heads, all that stuff's all still good. Pistons, crank. So all I gotta do is find a block at some point and I can rebuild this motor because it's a nice motor. I hate to just hate to just throw it in the scrap heap just over that crack in the block. So we've got this all stripped down. Now, I started taking off the suspension bolts because the axle was actually stuck. The skid plate was under this arm and pinching this brake line, which I'll have to replace too. And you can see this is supposed to be centered right here in between these two. It should be more centered, like right here. And it's because this arm's bent that much, why it's off that much, but I have a feeling there could be some more bent stuff down there. The way everything tweaked when it went, I just feel like maybe there's some more bent stuff down there. So we'll get to that later. But what I'm going to do now is I want to pull this axle out of here. I want to get the chassis over there sitting up. I want to get this chassis sitting up, supported, and then pull this whole front apart. Just get this axle out of here. And then we can focus on starting to build this to go under there and fixing this one to go under there. So that's what we're gonna do. This Kingpin Chevy 60, we're gonna put under this guy over here, and this Ford high pinion we're gonna put under there. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. And you know, the good thing is it's about tore down, and I can start working on fixing, going through the tubing and fixing all this other stuff that needs to be addressed. So, you know, it's the sad part's all tearing it down and stuff. The fun part is rebuilding and making everything better in the long run. So, finding areas we can improve and things we can fix. I try to look at it as positive as I can and say it's an opportunity to be better. But that's all I can do. So we're not throwing this thing away. It will sit it over on the side over there and hopefully, you know, fix it up, rebuild it, and find a new project for it, maybe somewhere down the line. I don't know. I don't know which way I really want to go. Do I want to continue messing around with buggies, or I just keep building Jeep type stuff? I don't know. It's all the same. But yeah, just gonna keep tearing it down.
Now we gotta pull the front axle out of here. And the easiest way I can think to do that is let's just use this motor hoist, hook it to the top of the axle so it doesn't rotate on me when I'm undoing all the bolts. Because that's what can happen, is it can want to rotate on you when you start undoing all the bolts, and just pull it out of there right with the tires on. Then what I can do is take all the tires off and set it right down onto the motor hoist, and then I can slide it around the shop a lot easier when it's on those rollers.
Alright, so I've got the motor out, sitting right there, pulled out of there, got the axle out, got a lot of metal work I gotta do. Right here, cut this, probably, I don't know, we'll look at either replating this or redoing it. Yeah, then we can get this axle squared away, nothing else, it's just the truss from here to here is messed up, so I'm gonna try to get on fixing that, and then getting this axle situated. Gotta find all the parts and pieces, and got a set of ring gears laying around here and a carrier and all that stuff, and then get this thing put together so it can go back under there. So we'll just set all the links up with the same dimensions and stuff, and should be good. Yeah, and then we'll get this all back together. It's gonna take a little time, but it'll be all right. Got kind of a mess going on in here. Kind of clean and reorganize and we just went and picked up our new motor for the rock crawler, our new old motor. Due to financial constraints, we won't be replacing it with as nice a motor as we had right there. That one's all nice and clean. No oil leaks. And then we got the Marketplace special here. You know, good thing is these LSs are good motors. What I'm going to do from my research, it says that this is a 5.3, that's 5.7. But basically the blocks and everything are pretty much the same. So what I'm going to do is just swap the intake, put that nice low Corvette intake onto here. I may swap oil pans. I gotta see if this oil pan's taller. Then if I do that, then I have to change the oil pickup as well. Some different stuff like that. So I got a bunch of things I gotta see if they're gonna work. Gotta see if this flex plate is the right one. We're gonna pull off all these wires, get it on the motor, on the engine stand, and then degrease the heck out of it. Cover all the ports and then spray the heck out of it with degreaser. Then, gonna take off all these accessories, the harmonic balancer, the water pump, all that sort of stuff. Then I gotta get a whole nother round of gaskets coming because obviously I'll disturb those gaskets. But you can see here, we got some oil leaks going down right there around this timing chain cover, so we'll be replacing that as well. It seems like a common place on these that always seems to leak, but we'll just probably re-gasket it. A lot of times I overhaul these motors and just do a real basic overhaul, but I don't think I'm gonna do that this time. I think I'm just gonna send it, re-gasket it, and just send it and see what happens. And you know, the guy told me it was running when it was pulled and everything was fine, so we shall see. But that's my plan moving forward. Time to degrease the heck out of this thing. Let's clean this old girl up. Make it look all respectable like. This oil's kicked on there pretty thick. And ooh, this stuff's strong. Oh, that is extra grimy. That's a whole lot of degreaser and a whole lot of elbow grease.
All I know is it's going to take a whole lot of elbow grease to try and clean this motor up.
Try and clean this whole thing up.